All right, welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I am your host, David Carr of Steward Your Business, where we bring great people together to accomplish amazing things. And we have an amazing guest here, Dillon Hawkins, another colleague from Success Champions Network. You guys know that I'm a big part of that network and have met some amazing people. Dillon has come on, and he is going to share us his experience on insurance, but we're going to get it in a different way. He's got a wealth of experience as a commercial insurance broker. I know that may not be super exciting, but we're actually going to go in and make this fun. From crashes to comeback, how do we protect your business before it becomes too late? Dillon, welcome to the podcast.
David, thank you for letting me join today. I'm humbled to be on.
Absolutely. So, Dillon, I like to always start our podcast with our guests, especially new guests that are coming on, to give us a little bit of background before we jump into the topic of insurance, why it's so important. But what got you into this space? You work with Hub International now, and just take us back a little bit of your journey as a man in business and stepping into this particular arena.
Yeah, of course. So I'll take you back. I'm from Alito, Texas. I played football many moons ago, and I was fortunate to play at the collegiate level at a Division II school called Lindenwood. And at Lindenwood, I originally wanted to be a coach. And so I have an undergrad in sport management, and then I have my master's in supply chain management. And backstory, before while I was working on my master's, like I told you, I want to be a coach. And so I was a grad assistant. I was coaching my former teammates, and I was loving it. But I realized very quickly how difficult that lifestyle is, both on your families and just the time commitment in that space. And so I quickly kind of changed, and my father-in-law worked for FedEx. And so I was wanting to get a job with the FedEx team. And so that's why I got my master's in supply chain management. Mm-hmm. And then the FedEx gig did not work out, which was a blessing in disguise. And so I got hired on coming out of college with JB Hunt, which is a big supply chain company. There's 4 different divisions within JB Hunt. I was on what they call the DCS side, the dedicated contract services side. And so I worked there for 3 years out of college, and loved what I did. I kind of worked my way into a leadership role where I was on site with our customer. Chicken Express was our customer at the time. And so I had a fleet of 26 truck drivers, 3 supervisors, and I ran that operation, did all the P&Ls on site with the customer. It taught me a ton of what it's like to own the business. What I explained to people is I was pretty much the business owner of that operation without the investment. And so it was awesome. I loved being able to get on an account and see some weaknesses, see some strengths, and really start targeting those weaknesses, and then seeing that directly correlate in the P&L statements over the months to come. Seeing that positive impact was just intoxicating for me, honestly. I loved it. And then after 3 years there, to get into the role I'm at now, I've got a brother that works on the employee benefits side of our company. And he kept trying to pull me away from my transportation business for years, and then finally took an interview, and the rest was history. Started my career completely over. Took a large pay cut, and here we are. So there were many bumps and bruises, like what you alluded to on the way, but I've been in this career now for 6.5 years, and I'm super fortunate to have found it whenever I did.
Well, I'm grateful you're here, Dillon. I'm excited. You mentioned you have a diverse background, literally from the gridiron, going playing sports, and I think having this unique background with that, and in playing into this whole supply chain, literally dispatching 18-wheelers and the high stakes of client support and all of the logistics there. I feel like you've been in the trenches. So there's a difference there, at least from my perspective, when you're coming from talking about the area commercial insurance, of like, you've seen some of the things, you've seen some of the gaps, if you will. And so you've seen what's been successful and maybe probably not was successful. We're going to get a little bit into that. But I think, that this is where we want to get business owners on this podcast listening in, lean in a little bit, because let's be honest, like insurance, I know isn't always what most founders are thinking about, but if we ignore it, we're not going to have a business to maybe lead next year. So we need to be cognizant of that. And you never know where we're going to find ourselves. And so Dillon, you're like, okay, here's this journey. And now here you are, it's now, 6+ years in, like I never thought I'd be here, but for me too, Steward Your Business was something that shifted. And I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to serve, and use my gifts, talents, and abilities. And I see you doing the same. And that's what we love to have folks like you on the podcast willing to share. So maybe walk us through a little bit, where you're seeing some of the gaps, like, the myths that may be costing businesses. You've lived this out a bit for a while now. And, where are you seeing some things where you were before? Like, hey, I'm running these things and now I'm in the other seat. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even consider these things. Like, I thought we were covered, but we weren't really covered. Like, what are some of the myths that are costing business in the space of commercial insurance?
Yeah, and so the most common insurance answer that you'll receive is it depends. But to dig into it, really, it's one of the favorite things that I like to do whenever I'm meeting somebody new and I'm talking to them about their insurance program is it's really getting to know that person and what risks they're willing to take on, because you'll find some business owners are hardcore with their risk taking. They want really high deductibles. They're okay with self-insuring some of the things. And what I like to do is, I'm very grateful, like what you alluded to with my background in sports and all that stuff. I'm used to working with a lot of different personalities, and that helps me just kind of, my joke is like, hey, you can yell at me. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all. Like, I'll be able to understand what you're trying to tell me, and then we'll process it, move on. But really, it truly is just getting to know that particular business owner, walking them through what coverages they do have in place, what's some of the gaps that they might have, and then seeing if that's important to them or not. Because sometimes they're like, hey, thanks for bringing me that awareness. I didn't know that I didn't have products completed coverage, but now let's talk about what the premium is, and then does that make sense or not? And they may still say, yep, I'm okay with self-insuring it. And that's my conversation with them is, hey, it doesn't hurt my feelings one way or another. All I want is for us to have these conversations proactively, so that way whenever you call me and there is a claim, you already have a good idea if you do have coverage for it or you don't, because that's the last thing that we want as an agent on our side is for you to give us a call with a claim, and then you find out that you have no coverage. And
you're like, sorry,
yes,
nothing there. Well,
yeah.
I want to get you brought up a great point, Dillon, because in today's world, I see so many people selling product or service without building a relationship with an individual, particularly for us that we're in the professional services world. And I agree with you. We want to understand what is your needs, what are your problems, what are the ones you may or uncover them. Like you said, maybe they're unaware. Like, did you know that? And then they can make an informed decision on how to. And everybody, like you said, level of risk, like reminds me of like investing in the stock market. I would say, what do you want to invest in? What's your risk level, right? And so helping them, do you help them, Dillon? Like, when you look at that, like, what is your risk? What is your exposure? Because they may not understand, like, how risky is this, right? You look at that and they help you.
Right. And that's where I it's always fun to bring up, or fun's maybe not the right word, but to bring up past experiences, right? And for some that there's this coverage called EPLI coverage, and that helps you with any discrimination or sexual harassment claim and things like that. And so a lot of the companies that I work with are family owned and operated, and they're like, oh, we won't have that type of issue in here. And once again, it's I just bring awareness. And so I share, hey, one of my other family owned, companies, they dealt with this problem. And, the bigger you get, the less family that you have in there. And now you're just starting to get more people in there. And it's just still painting the picture of, hey, this is what could happen. And if it does, are you okay with that? Are you going to be able to handle potentially $100,000 to $150,000 loss that you may not have coverage for? If you are, and you don't want to pay the $10,000 in premium for it, once again, then we're good to go. But just proactive communication is key. Because really, yeah, as a broker, we help place businesses. We help find the best carrier with the best coverage at the most competitive rate. But you're also really just an advisor, and you really are. You're just part of the business, and you're helping them walk through other circumstances that might not even be insurance related, but still maybe, hey, you've got an opportunity here to enhance your contracts that then will be able to limit any other further claims down the road. So.
Well, I know the reason why you and I met, because we have synergy together. We're parallel with the other. I just had another colleague of ours, and Carrier, on our podcast recently talking about HR issues, right? And it's complementary what you said. Like, she brought up an issue of an employee in the company, not outright. They just were alluding to, like, at my last company, I got such and such fired, or the last company had this happen. And it's like, oh, these little things started creeping up. Not that we're doing anything bad, but to your point of like, oh man, I wasn't prepared for this person to do a, right turn on me. Like, what the heck is going on here? Right. And then they didn't have anything in place, like you said. So, you're pairing up with other experts like myself in the leadership space. I work with HR, like with Shannon and others, because we're looking holistically. And what I love about you, Dillon, and those that are coming outside of the company, right? They just have blind spots. They are not aware. So you have so much experience because you're working with all these different companies. You're like, here's what I've seen across different companies, different industries. And I'm sharing all this with you that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And that's really one of the most fun parts about my job, is just to share those experiences and to help them at least really feel that pain before it actually happens, because then they can, it's proactive versus reactive. Another thing that you made me think of is, I've got several clients with a big auto fleet, right? We're talking 40 or 50 trucks, artisan contractors type risks. And I can think of a renewal last year. I noticed we've gotten several auto claims pretty consistently. And, sometimes with other competitors, if you're with a firm that's not proactive, they may just take those claims, file them, handle the claim, and then wait till renewal to give you the bad news of, hey, if you don't get this cleaned up now, this renewal is not going to be looking very pretty for the next year. And so that's what we did, is we had a meeting, said, hey, we've had several rear end collisions. Basically, what's going on? Let's get our risk control team out here, because this is what your renewal could look like here 6 months down the road. If we don't get a grip on this in a hurry, or it could be a non-renewal, which could be even worse. And so once again, just proactive communication on really, helping them feel the pain before the pain's really there. So then we can minimize the pain, if you will. So,
wow, that's super valuable, Dillon. I mean, the fact that you're paying attention to these things, you're just like, well, I don't have to say anything and just give them the bad news. So instead of saying, look, I'm on your team, I'm trying to help you. And then it actually made me think, because I work with clients, Dillon, sometimes too, like, is it, thinking about, is it smarter for me to buy a vehicle or rent a vehicle and use the, what's the insurance and what's the risk and how do I want to balance that, right? So giving them and guiding them as to like a strategy here,
Yeah. And I just had, you made me think of one other topic. This was 2 weeks ago. I had a client ask me, they said, hey, we're not going to give them a vehicle, but we're thinking about either increasing their pay or just giving them a stipend for a vehicle. What do you recommend? And I said, well, if we increase their pay, then now your liability insurance is going to go up, because that's based off payroll, and your workers' comp insurance is going to go up as well, because that's based off payroll. So if you can do a stipend and then that's not part of their pay, then that's not going to be factored in. And so that could, those little type of things that it's really not an insurance conversation, but it just, kind of was able to highlight some impact of what that could look like, help them make their decision of, let's just do a stipend instead.
No, it's just a different strategy. That's great, Dillon. Super valuable. These are like additional add-ons to, like you said, the insurance, but that's because of the relationship they're having with you, and they're sharing these things with you. So like, okay, maybe we should talk with Dillon and get some insights here.
And that's I know you and I talked about this offline, but my favorite parts of the conversation that I have with my insureds is really once the insurance conversation is over, renewals wrapped up, that's all put to bed, and now we're just having conversations about how their business is doing well, what's it struggling with, what are some opportunities that you see that you could be able to help improve, and that's where we're able to use our SEN network, just our other network outside of our services that we provide. And it's just being curious, having real conversations and being relational with your clients. That's where I'm like, insurance, it's the nature of the beast. That's what I'm hired to do. But the true value that I feel is really getting connected with my clients and getting to know them.
Absolutely. And again, Dillon, that's why you and I share the same passion of like, how do we do this? Because the same thing I'm looking at, like you said, I'm looking at the people, I'm looking at the organizational health, I'm looking at developing the leaders, but I'm saying, hey, you know what? Things come up. Like I just mentioned to you about this whole fleet or other things. I'm like, okay, this is not my area of expertise, but I know somebody that I trust. That's why we have the whole Business Roundtable podcast. Is that then as you as a listener here, you have one more resource that you can say, look, it's been vetted. I hear them. This is not just some AI junk that's put out there, not junk, but you know what I mean? There's stuff out there just putting out there as like, how do I know this from anybody else? And that really wants to get to know me. And Dillon is one of those people that I hope you hear loud and clear. That's why I'm having him on the podcast, is because it is one of the philosophies I have, Dillon, like the same with you, is relationship before opportunity. Like, how do we know and trust you that you're actually looking after my best interest?
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that's exactly
I guess
right.
I want to ask you this because this is important. Like, how do we vet an insurance broker? Like, what are the things? So we're kind of talking a little bit about this, but I want to go a little deeper. Is like, as a business owner, what questions should I be asking of somebody like you, Dillon, so that I can know that this person gets me or knows my maybe industry or business model or whatnot? Can you just walk us through a little bit about what I should be thinking about?
Of course. So one of my favorite questions that I ask any new client that I'm having a conversation with is first of all, I let them know, hey, I don't sell to you. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not selling to you. I'm selling your company to the marketplace, to the carriers. And so one of my favorite questions to ask them is, hey, what's the narrative that your current broker is sharing with the marketplace? And a lot of them will kind of look at me and be like, well, what are you talking about? I've got Accord apps and some other stuff that I've signed. I'm like, yeah, well, what's the narrative? And so, tell me the background. When did your business start? How did it start? How did it grow? You got 5 divisions now? How did all those take off? And then what are you focusing on? What are your future plans? And then talk to me about your risk safety program. I mean, the list can go on and on from there. But it really is, that's what, and that's how I've been able to help some recent new clients here lately is, I sat down with them, got the narrative, really got a better understanding of what they're currently doing, what they're trying to get into, shared that with the marketplace on some carriers that had seen the risk several years prior that declined it. And they actually reversed their stance on the declination because they had a better understanding of the risk. The more information you can share with the carriers, the more comfortable they're going to be. The more carriers that you have trying to write the risk, then you're able to get the prices down. So, that really is one of the most important things that we do as brokers. And so if the insured doesn't know what that narrative is being, and what I'll do with my clients is I'll show them, this is the narrative that I have for you so far. Tell me how I need to enhance it, because nobody knows your business better than you. So, and then they can really see the work that we've done so far. And then they can also help us highlight some additional things that, only they're going to know.
Yeah, no, well, that's a good point. Yeah. Because I've seen enough people, I think business owners, again, this is where I think you really need to be hands-on, what you're saying, Dillon, like get that narrative down, like how much, like, oh, I'm so busy, I got these things on. It's like, you can help them, like help me help you, right? Kind of a thing. So give me this stuff so that I can be your advocate. But if you don't give me it, you're kind of hurting yourself here. Like what I say, and that's a really unique way you just put it, Dillon. Like you're selling this company to the marketplace. You're trying to get the best, coverage for the best price, all of these things. But if you're not helping me, you're not being proactive in this. I'm like, kind of limiting yourself. So
Right.
business owners take this, and I really like this narrative idea. Like, what is it? What is that narrative? Because honestly, I work with business owners on this, Dillon, of like, what is your overall vision? What's your mission? What are the things that you value? And it's kind of out there. And sometimes they're really dialed in, but honestly, most of them are not dialed in
Right.
as sharp as at least in my experience. I'm
Mhm.
like, let's be really clear, because the reality is, to me, Dillon, if it's really clear to the insurers, is hopefully it's going to be clear to your marketplace of your ideal clients. Those people are like, I want to work with this company. This company is for me.
Right.
Versus, I don't know. I'm not quite 100% clear about what it is you're doing or what's going on, right?
Right. No, that's exactly right. And then this just made me think of some of my earlier years. I would try to help as many people as I could. And, definitely whenever relationship is huge. And so whenever you're starting a new relationship, sometimes an insured doesn't want to share as much information with you. And I've gotten to the point in my career now where I'm happy to share with them. I go, hey, I've done this long enough that if I don't have all the information that I need, I'm not going to be able to help you. And people hire me because I was able to help them in such way or another. And so, I can save us both a lot of time here. If you're not wanting to provide me that information, then I think you're in a good spot. And if you want to, then I'm happy to continue to go along with my due diligence. But I've got to have your buy-in. I need all the information I can get.
Right. Yeah, we want to help. It's like if you're gonna withhold, like you said, I may not be the best fit for you, or I don't want. I want everybody to feel served and not feeling like, oh well, this person took advantage of me. Well, no, we're not taking advantage of anybody. We want to make sure that we're helping you in getting what you really need. But if we can't get to the facts of things, you're right, Dillon. Yeah, we're kind of we're not gonna be able to help you. We're not gonna make as much difference,
Yeah, and that's my favorite thing to tell them is, hey, I'm going to be in this industry for a long time. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And, I'm happy to be here if you change your mind later on down the road. And that's the funny thing. I was hoping we'd get to this earlier, but if you would have told me out of college that I would be in a sales role, I would have laughed at you. I'm an operations background. That's my blood. That's who I am. And really, I don't view myself as a salesperson at all. It's really just a consultant, and once again, awareness and experience, and this is what I can do. And there are many conversations where we shake hands, and it's you go your way, I'll go mine until our paths meet again. So it really is. It's not hard sales by any means.
Well, I think you and I, before we started recording, we were talking about the 5 voices, that framework that I use, and interesting leader's voice. I think both of you are connectors, and I'm with you in the sense of quote unquote selling. I feel like you and I are a vector for people to invest in themselves and their company. That's what hopefully that it comes across, because I'm with you 100%, Dillon. I love operations, the production side of things. That's where I really thrive. But I realized that I have to provide a space by helping people I'm a vector, like you said, to them to come through you, to then get the coverage, whatever the resource that they need. And so you're providing that, and you're helping them get it quicker, and you're doing the due diligence, you're resourceful, and I think that's so important. So nobody wants to be sold. Everybody wants to buy in with confidence, right? And feeling like, hey, this is in my best interest. I've done the work, and I know that here I've got somebody on my team that is actually helping me run my business better, right?
Right. Yep. An asset. That's right. That's what
an asset.
That's what we want to be. We want to be an asset to the company.
Absolutely. Well, I think the company, my company's name is Steward Your Business, stewardship. We're looking at risk management, and I think that's so important about protecting what matters most. I'm looking at the people. Ultimately, what you're doing is protecting the people. But really, what you're providing, what I hear you say, Dillon, is it isn't just about a policy, but it's really peace of mind for the leaders, the people that they employ. You're looking at this holistically and really coming from a place of advocating for the business owner. Not just the owner, but the everybody in the company.
And one thing I didn't share earlier, but I was originally, whenever I left JB Hunt to get in the insurance world, I worked for a small family-owned shop. And that was such a great experience. I was there for a year. Hub acquired the small family-owned shop in July of 2020, and I'm so grateful for that experience because it's helped me appreciate what it's like. Hub's the 5th largest broker in the world. We've got a lot of very, very smart people all over the place, and so now I don't have to be a specialist in all these different things to still be able to help my insureds. I was a defensive guy whenever I played football. So I'm not the quarterback, I'm the linebacker of the operation. And I just plug in all these people. And so, one of the coverages, it's a professional management liability policy called directors and officers. And so that's for all the board. And that's a very important coverage that many of my clients do have. And whenever they've got really specific questions on that, then we have a team called the products team. That's all they do is they place D&O coverage. And same thing with cyber. And we've got a property specialist and we have a workers' comp specialist. And so anything, I know enough to be dangerous in all these, but whenever we really want to get in the weeds on it, I just loop in the right contact and then I help facilitate that. I'm part of the conversation. The insured's still getting, all the expertise that they need. And it makes, it's nice to be that asset,
No, I think that's so important. So what I hear you saying, Dillon, was being this broker, you're going and finding all these different, whether it's cyber, all these different elements of policies. And so maybe it's all one carrier, but maybe it's different carriers depending on what it is, right? And so you're figuring out, okay, what is it? What's the mix that we need? And then you have the team that goes in, because it's hard to stay on top of all these things. Absolutely. Even I've been in background environmental consulting for 20 plus years. I don't know everything about the environment. There's a ton of areas. I'll tell you about wildlife and nature and outdoors. Don't ask me about other elements, right? So I mean, it's great that you have this network, and that's why, again, Dillon comes on here, because you guys can compare and see, hey, get on a call with Dillon and find out. So Dillon, I know we're getting close to the end of the podcast. What's the best way for folks to connect with you? I know you and I are connected on LinkedIn, but what's other ways that they can find you?
Really, LinkedIn and, just my email, and I can provide that for you, and my phone number. And
we'll make sure all of at least your LinkedIn links and everything's on our show notes, because Dillon, like I said, Dillon and I are connected. And you've just got a great wealth of a network. I know, again, we're getting close to the end here. I love to always have our guests share kind of a key takeaway or just thoughts as we wrap up the podcast. If we've covered a lot of things here in a short period of time, but what would you say as a business owner, a leader in a company, like, they should be thinking about the insurance and making sure that they're not leaving any gaps, as we talked about earlier, open and minimizing their risks?
Right. And then, I guess, so I would answer that by saying, are you working with an agent or an advisor? And what I mean by that is, an agent will just take, all right, here's a complete supplemental. I'll send this to the marketplace. I'll get you the information back. Or an advisor is going to look at that supplemental before they even send it to the carrier and say, hey, I saw you answered this question. I wanted to get a little bit more color as to what you mean by that, because I think, we may need to update this. This doesn't accurately reflect what your business is, and so many more things. But if you're not getting a lot of the questions back on these conversations, it may be worth having a conversation with somebody else, and it doesn't have to be me, but just somebody else local in your network. But an advisor is really going to be asking questions that you're not necessarily thinking about, and that's okay, because this is what we do all the time. You're a business owner. You go do what you specialize in, and we will help you kind of integrate all those gaps in place. So
that's a great point. So here's another advisor that you guys can listen to and check out, ask the questions. Dillon's happy to meet with you. I'm grateful that you're here, Dillon. This has been fantastic having you on the podcast. We haven't covered this topic before. This is brand new. Hopefully I had fun a little bit. Everybody listening to Dillon, thank you for being here on the podcast with us.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, of course, we love when you like and subscribe. Leave comments. We'll make sure that Dillon gets them. Your feedback is great, and share this if you found it valuable with others. come back again and join us on the next episode of the Business Roundtable Podcast. Thanks everybody for listening in. Until then, take care. Be well.